All right, welcome back to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. My name is Guy McPherson. My mission is to raise the awareness of trauma and to support and inspire new trauma therapists just starting out on the trauma-informed journey. I do that with my membership community, Trauma Therapist 2.0, my online courses and workshops, and the Trauma Therapist newsletter. If you're a therapist of any kind and you work with individuals who've been impacted by trauma, I invite you to head on over to my website at thetraumatherapistproject.com. That's thetraumatherapistproject.com. All right, let's get started. So 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, folks, welcome back to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. I am thrilled to finally get in touch with Christina Kantzavelos. Christina, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I am so honored to be here. I love your podcast. So thank you.
You're welcome, and I appreciate that. So Christina is a neurodivergent and first-generation licensed clinical social worker, life coach, writer, and chronic illness warrior. She received both her BA and MSW from the University of California, Los Angeles, and her MLIS from San Jose State University. She specializes in treating clients with chronic health conditions and trauma, chronic medical conditions, sickle cell disease, mold illness, etc., which often come with significant challenges like fear, anxiety, medical PTSD, and which also may interfere with relationships and daily function. It's her experience and belief that chronic illness are often rooted in trauma that causes a chronic stress, fight or flight response, not allowing the body to prioritize healing. Christina, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
All right. So before we get going here, share with our listeners where you are from originally and where you are currently.
So I'm currently in Joshua Tree, but I've lived all over Southern California.
Okay.
So I moved here from San Diego a few years back.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So let's dive into it. How the heck did you get into this place such that we're talking today?
Well, I think it was my own chronic illness, my own traumas. I ended up getting Lyme disease after working abroad in Mexico. I was doing humanitarian work. That was my past life. I was with various NGOs. I was waiting to be placed with Doctors Without Borders. So that's what I was doing. That was my identity. That was my life. And my life literally turned upside down. I got very sick while abroad. I had to cut my contract early, come back here. I was passed around like a hot potato. I could barely work because I was fainting. I was so incredibly ill. No one knew what was going on. Eventually, I saw a Lyme literate physician, and I'd only heard of Lyme peripherally. I didn't know much about it, but he took one look at me and based on my presentation and my symptoms knew right away that it was Lyme and Lyme co-infections. So that's kind of where and how this all started. It wasn't just, I'm accepting this diagnosis. I need to understand how and why this happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, why is it that someone else gets bit by a tick and nothing manifests, they don't get sick? Why is that? So while I was couchbound, I couldn't work. I was dependent on my parents wholeheartedly, like pretty much with everything. I kind of took a deep dive into my own well-being and background and to understand the root cause of my dis-ease. So yeah, it's been a journey, and I couldn't find a therapist who specialized in chronic illness and who could get me to where I wanted to be. So I had to take pieces from here, pieces from there. And eventually I basically became the therapist I so wish I had during that time, if that makes sense.
Let me interject for 1 second. So for those listeners who aren't familiar with, just give us a thumbnail of what Lyme disease is.
Oh gosh. So Lyme disease is considered the great imitator. It has over 300 symptoms. There's various doctors who are now saying MS and Parkinson's and Alzheimer's are rooted in Lyme disease. So it can manifest into so many different ailments and autoimmune diseases, and each person presents very differently, right? There's like neuro Lyme, there's all sorts of things. So for me, it was like, I had more of the dysautonomia, which is more like low blood pressure, fainting spells, I became highly sensitive to sense, to food, at extreme fatigue. I, would have areas of my body that were numb that I couldn't
Oh
feel. I
gosh.
would have pain. I mean, the list goes on and on in terms of my symptoms. But with that being said, every person I've ever met with Lyme has various symptoms.
You mentioned being bitten by a tick.
I don't know. I don't recall being bit by.
Is that the cause?
That's usually the cause.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's tick. Yeah. It's a tick-borne illness. And then some doctors do believe that mosquitoes carry it as well. So I know I've had many mosquito bites in my life, and ticks can be so tiny, right? And I think it's only 20% of people end up with the Lyme rash after a tick bite. So perhaps I've hiked quite a bit in my life. Perhaps I was bit at some point, but I've had chronic illness the majority of my life. So it could have been at any given point.
So how did things unfold such that you said to yourself, well, how did you approach your quote unquote healing path? And at what point did you say maybe, or I should see a therapist?
So I've been seeing a therapist I've been in therapy on and off for a very long time. But in this specific scenario, I had just read When the Body Says No by Dr. Gabor Mate. And it was a huge aha moment of, oh my God, I'm a chronic fawner, people pleaser. I learned about the 4 F's, right? It's not just fight or flight. We go past that. And now we're in either a freeze response or a fawning response,
Mhm.
which is people pleasing, overachieving. And I fit that criteria, that mold completely. So for me, it was like, how do I learn more about this? How did I get here in the first place? I realized I'd been in a fight or flight response for decades. So it wasn't just finding a therapist, it was getting into neural retraining. How do I get out of
Mm,
this fight or flight response? And there are neural retraining programs, and I actually require anyone who comes to see me has to do a program. I have no affiliation with any of them, but
mhm.
it is necessary for us to.
What is a neural retraining program? What's the
So
purpose?
it's retraining your brain. So we neurons that fire together, wire together. And if we've been in a fight or flight response for a very long time, I see it kind of as like a snowball effect. The snowball gets larger and larger and larger. So when we're sick and we're in this mindset, we're sick, we're not feeling well, I'm scared of this, I'm sensitive to
Mhm.
this. It piles on more and more and more. And then we heavily identify with it. And it doesn't help us. It doesn't help heal us. It keeps us in this fear response. So what neural retraining does is it uses a combination of different modalities to basically start walking you out of that. So each program, it's a daily practice that you
Mhm.
do. It's like how you speak to yourself, right? Because our bodies hear everything we say. So it's literally retraining your brain to not identify with being sick
Mhm.
and to start identifying with what it would be like to be and feel healthy. So it uses a lot of visualizations.
And so that's separate from the therapy that you provide.
Yes, that is separate, because I could, of course, coach someone through neural retraining, but a program is 14 hours long. It would be much more. It makes more sense time wise for someone to just complete a program than
Okay.
do that with me.
Okay. So you had mentioned that you got to a point where you were trying to find a therapist to help you and couldn't, and then kind of became that. Talk to us about that process.
Yeah, so I found an EMDR therapist, at least in Southern California. She didn't specialize in chronic illness, but she was somewhat aware, and that was helpful. However, we went right into it without building rapport, which actually put me in more of a, that actually dysregulated my nervous system even more. And I'll get to that as how I work as a therapist now, but it's like what not to do as a therapist. And that's that you need to really build trust, rapport, and safety before you start delving into someone's deepest traumas. I actually ended up finding a therapist in London who specializes in chronic illness. So I was meeting with him via Zoom. He's more of like a talk therapist.
So why did you see a therapist in the first place?
Oh, because I needed to get to the root of my dis-ease. Why did this happen?
Why did you?
Where,
Okay. How did you contract Lyme disease?
Why did I get sick?
Okay.
So with the Lyme, I mean, I don't know if I was going to find an actual day and time where I contracted it. The question was more of why was my immune system in such a place that I would get this sick? And for me, I see this, I see both how we get sick and how we get healthy, like a pie, and each piece is as integral as the next. And for me, it's like, it's trauma, it's food, it's, what I put on my body, what I clean the house with, it's what I listen to. It's, I can go on and on about why I got sick. I just knew there were pieces in there that I needed to work through with a therapist. And
well, that's very interesting. I admire that.
Yeah.
I think that's very interesting because I think most people would maybe in your case, see a therapist because of how they were feeling as a result of the disease, in a sense.
Yeah.
As opposed to saying, okay, there's got to be some reason why or how this happened in the first place. Let me explore that. I think that to me is a sign of someone who's pretty self-aware. Had you been, so this was prior to studying to be a therapist?
No, I was already a therapist.
Okay, that makes more sense to me.
Yeah, but we didn't learn in school. We didn't learn any really much about trauma or any trauma-informed modalities. This is something I had to learn. I had to become EMDR trained and constructive awareness trained after the fact in all of this. Yeah.
So you saw this person in London. How did you find this person?
Someone else had posted about him actually on Instagram, just saying, I love my therapist. He works out of this clinic. And I reached out to her because at this point, even if it's just talk therapy, I needed to talk to someone about this, someone who gets it. Like, it's so important to talk to someone who understands, where I don't have to give them subtitles, because that's what I was finding with other therapists is I would say something and they'd go, "Ooh, I don't know what that means," or I'll have to Google it later. And it would take away from our actual what we were doing. It would take me out of, being present in that. So with him, it was wonderful because I didn't have to explain anything to me. And there is such thing as medical PTSD. And I had so many of us experience it, and I can go into it, but there's a lot of gaslighting that happens. It's intense. It's intense to move through this world with chronic illness and heal from it. And it's not for the faint of heart, that's for sure. But yeah, I found him and it was great. I just, I needed to delve further, and I was able to, but with neural retraining, I was able to do that, and learning about the constructed awareness modality. And yeah, I'm just really grateful that I had access to those things.
So what did this therapist do that helped you, aside from building rapport with you?
I think just, building rapport, seeing me, understanding where I was coming from, offering a different perspective. If I brought something up, he would bring up a different perspective or reflect things back to me that I hadn't thought about. He was absolutely, he was wonderful. And as I began to feel better, right, just like anything else, we kind of hit a plateau, and that's a good thing. So it's time for me to move on to a different type of therapist that uses different modalities, where it's like, I don't need someone who knows chronic illness, like, on a personal level anymore. I can move past that now and work on other things.
So what did you learn about yourself? What did you learn? And I'm assuming you probably still are learning, but what are some of the things that you learned? Okay, how this happened? How did my whole psyche, how was it constructed that enabled me to get sick or contributed to that? What did you learn?
I learned that, as a child, I adapted to my trauma by overachieving, by people pleasing, by becoming a parentified child. That was my way of surviving and adapting, which is wonderful. I'm so glad that I survived my childhood and my teen years. However, those things have not been, or have proven to actually not be helpful in my adult life. So just learning and understanding that, and like showing myself a lot of self-compassion and grace, and that's okay. This didn't happen overnight. I didn't learn the survival mechanism overnight. I'm not expecting myself to get rid of it overnight. I think that was probably one of the most helpful things. No one chooses to get sick or to be ill. It's so complex. And the other thing that really helped me too, which is a free resource, is joining Codependence Anonymous, which is it's a 12-step program. And they really could call it People Pleasers Anonymous, Overachievers Anonymous. And doing like a step group through that was really powerful and empowering.
So how would you say that, or what role would you say that played in your chronic illness?
Yeah, I think the role it played is that me being a perpetual overachiever, people pleaser, kept me in a fawning response. Like I'd mentioned, one of the 4 F's.
Yeah.
And, we can't, there's fight and flight, and rest and digest, which is the opposite, right? We have our sympathetic, we have our parasympathetic. Those 2 things cannot operate at the exact same time. So when we're in fight or flight mode, that rest and digest, that healing goes on the back burner, right? Because our bodies think there's a tiger in the room. And by staying in that mentality and not addressing it, not healing it, wasn't going to allow my body the proper time and space and energy to heal, because it's too busy keeping me in survival mode.
This is very interesting because, correct me if I'm wrong. So what you're saying here is, it's one thing for us to be sick, and it's kind of another way of looking at it, or the other side to this, or another facet to this, is who we are shapes how we are when we're sick. And that's really interesting to me. So at some point you were like, okay, I need to be this therapist. When did that happen? How did that happen?
I think while I was sick, I actually was looking for a mind-body journal, physical journal, and I created one.
Of course you did.
I'm like, I had no intentions of doing that. I was so sick, but I had to. I wanted to document my health, but I'd also done research in how journaling isn't just wonderful for our mental health. It actually speeds up the physical healing process. Like in wounds, there's different. Yeah, they've researched it. It's pretty wild and really neat. So I started doing it with the focus of gratitude and self-love. And because so often we end up hating our bodies when we're sick, because we think our bodies are betraying us. It makes sense. So I had to undo that work, a lot of unlearning, learning and unlearning constantly for the rest of my life, but especially in this case. And as I'm doing this, as I'm looking for a therapist, I just have this realization. And I came from the humanitarian world. I had private practice, wasn't really, I didn't think that was going to be part of my future. But come to find out, as I'm doing all this in the midst of it, I'm like, I need to offer this to other folks if I start to feel better. If and when I start to feel better, this is one way I really want to give back, because I know how impactful it is on our mental and physical health. And as soon as I began to feel better, I went back to private practice. I was able to do it virtually, which was ideal for me because I was continuing to heal, and it allows for folks to do it from the comfort of their own home. And it's.
And what specifically, Christina, did you want to offer?
I wanted to offer a way to create a space where you don't have to give me any subtitles. I'm pretty versed in most chronic illnesses. I'm constantly doing research, and not that I know everything, but if I don't, of course, I'll figure it out. But I have an idea if someone comes to me about what's going on with their symptoms or their diagnosis. So that aspect I wanted to be able to offer folks. Secondly, I wanted to get them on the path of neural retraining, which I so wish someone would have, the moment I contracted Lyme or whatever, when I got really sick, I wish someone would have just been like, Christina, here's a neural retraining program, do it. I so wish that would have been offered to me. It's okay. Timing, divine timing. And get them in a place where, they're feeling safe. They're at least walking out of fight or flight mode. And in the midst of that, start slowly but surely starting to understand the root cause of their dis-ease, which could be anything. But before we start really hitting hard on traumas, I really like the constructed awareness approach, which is essentially like, if EMDR was and somatic experiencing like sort of had a baby in a way, I really like it. It's a very gentle approach, and for processing, it's really a great way. I think don't tell anyone, I may prefer it to EMDR at this point because of how gentle and effective it is.
And what's the name of it again?
It's called somatic experiencing. Yeah.
Oh, somatic experiencing, of course.
I'm sorry. No. Oh my gosh. It's called constructed awareness. I apologize.
Constructed awareness.
I think somatic experiencing. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, okay. I want you to talk about that briefly, but before we do that, you said you explore with people the kind of origin of, or the cause of their illness. Now, what do you mean by that? Because when I'm sure people are listening, well, what do you mean? I mean, people get cancer through certain, specific happenings in their cells. Are you saying that beyond the physiological, or in accordance with the physiological, there's some other cause of the disease?
I'm referring to how they got stuck in fight or flight mode. And that's like that. When I said dis-ease.
Dis-ease. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
Dis-ease.
Okay.
But why, how did you get to be in chronic fight or flight? Because I've yet to meet anyone with chronic illness who isn't in a chronic fight or flight or stress response.
Right. Yeah, that's really interesting, because I don't think I've talked about this on this podcast. And it's really interesting when I learn about these new perspectives. And I mean, I don't know anyone else who's doing this. It's really intense. Okay. Constructed awareness. Give me where did you hear about this?
So I had taken a class, a virtual class by this man named, a fellow psychotherapist named Tyler Orr. I think he lives in Tennessee. He had conducted a course on EMDR and chronic illness. And then I loved it and did some research and found out that he actually created this modality called constructed awareness. And essentially, we are all oriented to one of three things, or all three, depends. We are mostly oriented to our external world, to our somatic world, our bodies, or our mental world. And it's how we sort of perceive and take in information. And basically what this allows you to do, it uses, similar to EMDR, it uses dual awareness, and similar to somatic experiencing, it follows, what sensations you're feeling in your body. So for someone, for example, who's super, mentally oriented, it may be difficult for them to put words to what they are somatically experiencing. Yeah, I'll send you the quiz so you can find out what you're most oriented to. Like, I'm most oriented to my external world, second to that, my mental world. So actually it makes sense when I got sick that I was so distant from my body, because I was least oriented to it. So in doing this practice, which, basically we bounce back and forth. What are you feeling? Right? What are you feeling right now in your body? Okay. Do any words come up with that? Okay. Can you grab something from the table? What does that feel like? Can you describe it? Is it heavy? Is it light? And then we just bounce back and forth. And then as time goes on and we build that rapport, we can start bringing in memories and start bouncing back and forth between a memory someone experienced, words they may associate with it, the feelings, the way their body responds to it, to where they are right now, presently. So it's a pretty neat modality. I just love how gentle it is. I notice it doesn't dysregulate my clients too much. And yeah, I'm appreciative of it for sure.
Very cool. I'll have that neural retraining. I'll have that linked up. Constructed awareness. Boy, you're giving me all these new things. Let me ask you something. First of all, let me just remind everyone that I'm speaking with Christina Kantzavelos. I'll have her linked up at the podcast page here at the traumatherapistpodcast.com. What is the best place for people to get in contact with you, Christina?
Yeah, my website is www.beginwithintoday.com, and I'm on Instagram. All the handles are pretty much Begin Within Today on social media. You can contact me there.
Okay. So let me ask you something. I mean, what do you feel your gift is in this realm? I mean, obviously you've talked about your own experience, but you're one of these people, and I don't mean to dismiss your uniqueness, but you're on a mission. Right? I mean, you're so passionate about this. What do you feel your unique role in this world of therapy is?
Thank you so much for saying that, first of all. Whew. What my role is, I really believe it's just connecting folks with the best possible resources for themselves. And if that's via, one-on-one therapy, if that's someone, purchasing my journal, if that's someone listening to this podcast and going, wow, I'm going to check out neural retraining. Like, I think in my heart, I'm a connector. So that manifests in so many different ways. I just want folks to know that, there is no one size fits all approach. And I do believe in everyone's capability to heal themselves. And I know it's a strong statement, but I do believe it because I've witnessed it. And, we can do really powerful things as humans. We can do really amazing things. And anyway, so just connecting people with resources and whatever they need to feel empowered to feel good in their bodies and their minds, etc.
How would you say you're different than a traditional therapist, quote unquote?
I'm different in that I'm very like I am here and now. Whatever, when a client comes to see me, let's say you and I are seeing each other today, we do a lot of work. Next week, you just want to vent, you just want to talk. Like there's room and space for all of that. I think I'm different in that I don't adhere to a 50-minute rule. Like I think that's very dysregulating to a person's nervous system. And I'm so glad to my London therapist for showing me that I can go over time, because we were taught in school that we have to hit that 50-minute mark. So what if someone's having a breakthrough at that 50-minute mark? Who am I to say, see you next week? You know?
Right.
Like, let's bookmark that. No, so my sessions go from 1 to 2 hours every single time until my clients feel complete. So I know for a fact, most other therapists are not doing that. I also, we have goals, and I'm constantly asking, are we meeting these goals? Do we want to add anything new? I tell my clients, you are not meant to see me forever. I want you to feel better and better and better. And if we hit that plateau where you're feeling better, you can either graduate from me completely or maybe go to another therapist. This is a space where, people come because they want to do the work. They want to feel better. I'm not forcing anyone to be here. And I also think, in what I offer, like in the neural retraining world, like they may do a program, but I'm helping coach them. And I don't think a lot of people are trained in constructed awareness or even EMDR really. And, getting to mix all of these modalities is a pretty cool thing. That's what I said. I'm like, the more I learn, the less I know. And I'm constantly learning and trying to, better my practice and better the experience for my clients.
Awesome. Well, you're super inspiring, and I'd love to have you back.
Cool.
Continue. Yeah. I think what you do is amazing, and you're pretty amazing yourself. Christina, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much again for having me. Oh, I'd love to come back. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
You too.
I want to thank you so much for listening to this podcast, and I want to let you know that I am very excited about my new podcast, The Right Now Project. The Right Now Project is about healing. It's about stepping into our own courage and authenticity and getting started or continuing along our healing process. We're all going through something, whatever it is, in this crazy life we're living. And the Right Now Project is about honoring that, celebrating that, and sharing our stories via the associated membership site. Check us out at therightnowproject.com, therightnowproject.com.